Hello once again and welcome back to my Chic Rose, and it's Rose here, and today I'm just going to speak with you guys on something that I always get labeled as. So just keep watching and I will share with you my thoughts and my experiences. So keep watching if you want to see more and understand what I'm talking about. So, how would I start this? Growing up, I would say I was always labeled as the church girl, or the one who's always, involved in some type of church activity. And then, it's just like always been a label. Or Rose is not going to do this because Rose is a church girl. Rose wouldn't go there because Rose is a church girl. So I just want to go into detail with some things that things that I've experienced and kind of how I've dealt with that, having that image and that kind of label put on me, even though unwillingly you could say I kind of put that label on myself without even realizing it, just like how I was living, just my habits and things that I would constantly get myself involved in. So, as most of you may know, I am a Christian. You can pretty much say I've been a Christian all my life. Like when I was in Haiti, the school that my mom and them had me going to was like a Catholic school. So at the time I was still young, so I didn't really understand the difference between the denominations. So I didn't understand the difference between being Catholic, being Seventh-day or Jehovah's Witness or any of that. I just knew, okay, there is a God and there is a higher power, and I need to respect it and I need to live a certain way. But at that time I was still pretty young when I was in that school, and mind you, this was in Haiti, so it just was instilled in me. I was in a private Catholic school, and with those schools in Haiti, your parents are paying a pretty good penny for those schools. So that's just what I knew, was just, okay, I'm already in a Catholic school, church, and then home. But I would say it's not until I moved here to the U.S. where I really started getting into church and slowly, learning about, what it is to actually be a Christian and those type of things. Because in Haiti, I was just doing it because that's where my mom sent me to school. Like, that's where, that's the things I was learning as a kid, like, and in my adolescent years, that's what I was learning. So it was just like already in my mind, like, okay, that's the direction you need to take, that's it. It's not until I came here, and of course, we're like, me and my cousins, we were all young, so of course we had to go to church. If my mom and my auntie was going to church, we were going to church. Like, there's no, oh, I'm gonna stay home or whatever and just chill or play video games or watch TV. It's like, if they say, okay, go get dressed, it's time to go to church, we're going to church. And it would be times when they would be at work, like when we were old enough to be home by ourselves, like they'll be at work, they'll both be at work, and guess what, we were hopping on that church van and going to church. Whether we wanted to or not, that's what we had to do. But as I grew older and I became a teenager and stuff like that, I really started to understand, okay, well, it's not just do it because your mom and your auntie and them is telling you to do it. You have to do it because something inside of you is pushing you to do it. Like, you going to church, it shouldn't be based on what your mom said or what your auntie said. Just don't do it because that's what they're telling you to do. Do it because there's a reason why you do it, and there's a purpose of why you're doing it. So as I got older, and I think by the time I got to middle school, I was just like, I was still like, I understood some things, but I didn't completely understand like what it really meant to live your life as a Christian. Even as young as I was, like, I was still kind of torn, like, yes, this is wrong, yes, this is right. But at the same time, I hadn't like fully made up my mind. Although when I was in middle school, that's when I got baptized. Like, no, actually, no, I accepted Christ in middle school. And the way I accepted Christ in middle school was this guy, he was a visitor, and he came to our youth group that Sunday afternoon, and he was talking to us, and he kind of like, I would say, scared me into saying, yes, I accept Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. Like, it was kind of something that I was pushed on, because I was just like, the way he was talking, he was like, what if you die today? Where would you go? Like, where would your soul go? And I was just like, oh my God. Like, he's like, if you accept Christ, you know you're going to heaven and this and that. And I was just like, oh shoot, like, yes, I want to accept Christ. So that's how that kind of happened. But me getting baptized, I think I was in high school. Yeah, I was in high school when I got baptized. And by that time, I think I was like more involved in the church. And I was like, I don't want to just be in the youth group, in the youth choir, and, you know, helping out in the church, and I'm not baptized. Like, to me, like, I feel like I wasn't fully committed if I wasn't baptized. So I got baptized when I was in high school. So throughout the whole time, from like elementary to high school, people always knew, like, okay, either Rosalyn's in church, whether her mom is there or not, she's in church, or she's at home, or she's at school, or if she's hanging out with friends, it's somebody from church that, you know, her mom and her aunt is allowing her to hang out with. So I just had that label, like, nope, she's not, you know, a bad child or whatever. You know, she goes to church all the time. She goes to church every Sunday. She doesn't miss a service. If it's a youth service, she's not going to miss it. That's just how I was. And it's not up until, no, even through high school, it was the same thing. Like, it would be after school, and I knew I had choir rehearsal that night. I don't care. Like, I would make sure I got my homework done, because I knew once Tuesday evening come and it's 7 or 7:30 or whatever, I have to be at choir rehearsal. So like, I was dedicated to all those things. Like, but at the same time, me being dedicated and, you know, putting all of my energy into these things, I still wasn't fully aware of what I was doing and my reason for doing it. It just, I was doing it out of habit at some points. Like, it was just, okay, well, you're supposed to be in church, so you're supposed to be in a youth group. You're a teenager, you're supposed to be in a youth group. You're a young adult, you're supposed to be in a youth group. That's just how I carried on. Like, if I was in school or whatever at home, I was in some kind of church activity, whether it was like helping with feeding the homeless. I got involved in that with a group at my church. Just whatever involved church and being active in it, I was in it. But a lot of the times also, it's like I was doing it and I knew the reason why I was doing, like, for example, feeding the homeless. I knew I was doing it. I knew it was a good thing to do to help out. But in being in the youth group, I knew that, you know, I had to do something, be active in the church. But for myself, like, I would say my soul and my inner being, I was still kind of like not completely aware of my purpose as a Christian and why I should do certain things as a Christian. I just, you know, kind of carried on, and still then I had that label. Well, that's Rosalyn. She's not gonna do this, or she's not gonna go. Like, even when we got to high school, people were like, oh, there's a party and stuff, and I'm just like, nope. And then my friends would automatically, you know, like, nah, she's not gonna go because it's Rosalyn. You know, she's not in that kind of stuff. She doesn't get herself involved in that kind of stuff. She's not gonna go. And even after high school, like, that's when I kind of pulled back a little bit from being active in the church, just because of some of the things that I was going through. I just was like, whatever. Like, I just kind of pulled back. Like, I'll go to church every Sunday though, but I kind of withdrew myself from like youth activities and the youth group. I would literally just like go to work, go home, and I would go to church on Sundays, but I just wasn't active in anything. And then I just kind of, and still then, even though I wasn't active in any of those things anymore, people still labeled me like, yeah, that's the church girl. And even my cousin's friends, they'll come to the house and like they already knew, like, yeah, it's Rosalyn, she's not gonna go. Like, if they were talking about something, like, oh, how you know about that? Aren't you in church all the time? How do you know about that? And I'm just like, okay, whatever, I guess that's my label, the church girl. Like, I don't know nothing else. So I just kind of I don't know, whatever, I was okay with it. I didn't care, it didn't bother me. Even through like, I would say my early 20s, mid 20s, I kind of just still found myself just like a little distant. Like I would go to church every single Sunday, but at the same time, I just wasn't as, alive as a Christian. Like I was just kind of like what they like to call, the term they like to call lukewarm. I was just there basically. Like I hadn't really made up my mind or figured out like exactly what am I doing, like what is my purpose, why am I even in church. Like I was just there, and people knew like, okay, if it's Sunday she's gonna go to church, but at the same time I'm going to church. But I was just like I don't know, I just wasn't feeling it like I should. And it got to a point where I got involved with one of my exes, and it got to a point where I would just go to parties or hangouts and stuff like that, or even got to a point where a lot of, if you're in the Orlando area, you know what I'm talking about, there's this thing called Kiss and Tell. So if you're in Orlando, you know what I'm talking about. Like I even found myself going to that, and I was just like, I would go, and then, but still, even though I went, I wouldn't miss church the next day. So once I started to notice I was doing that, I was just like, like even people looking at me being in there or being in those places, they still kind of looked at me like what are you doing here? Like I didn't belong or something. So even though I felt like I didn't belong, like I'll do it from time to time. Like it wasn't like a every weekend type of thing, but from time to time I would go when I felt like it, or if my friends were going, I would go. But at the same time, people were still looking like, nah, that's Rosaline. And some people even started calling me Sister Rose. Like they developed that name for me, like, oh, she's always in church. Like they know, if I'm not hanging around with them, like I'm gonna be at church. So even though I was kind of like, you can say living in both worlds, I still had that label on me of as that girl that's always in church. And I could say up until like a few years ago now, like I just kind of like just made up my mind. I'm like, okay, you know what? Figure out who you are. Because in the back of my head, I knew like, yes, what my purpose is, and yes, I'm here to serve God, and I'm a Christian and all of this. I knew that at the back of my head, but I wasn't fully living in it. So a few years ago, I decided, okay, you know what? All those things, like a lot of those people I used to hang out with, like cut off ties with them. Just, it just became like a high and by type of thing with them now. So once I cut that out of my life, I just started to focus on like, yes, people are calling you the church girl, but are you really like living it? Like what's really going on like in your head? And I had to like figure out, okay, what do I really want to do? Like what's really my purpose, and how do I fulfill what I'm supposed to fulfill as a Christian? Not just have the label of people just knowing me as, that person that's always in church, but yes, I'm there, but what's my purpose? Am I really doing something with my life? So, and I just started to think like, what are you doing? Like I was just kind of like lukewarm. It's like I knew wrong from right, but at the same time I didn't take the extra step to get me to where I needed to be. Like I was a type, yeah, I'll go to church all the time, but I wouldn't really read my Bible. I wouldn't really take that time out of my day to like pray or do a devotional, like read a scripture and like, process it. Like I wouldn't do any of that. I would just, Sunday came, all right, it's time to go to church. I'll get dressed and I would go. But once Sunday ended, it was just like, that was it for me. So what I did was like start associating myself with people that I knew were heading in the same direction as me and had that same goal and the same mindset as me. Like if I'm speaking about something to them spiritually, like they're gonna understand what I'm talking about. Like they're not gonna look at me like, well, I don't go to church, so I don't know what you're talking about. Not that, you know, I don't hang around people who don't go to church, or I'm not friends with people who don't go to church, but it's just certain conversations and certain things you deal with. If that person on the same level as you, they're not going to understand you. They're not going to be able to help you. So I had to figure it out and just kind of surround myself with those group of people and just start to train myself to like think differently when it came to my life and do things differently when it came to my life, because I didn't want to just be like have that label but then I'm not doing nothing else. Like nothing else in my life is proving, you know, that label or is corresponding to that label that I had. And even with that, like everyone knowing me as the church girl or whatever, some people are just like, oh, you just, you know, they'll assume or say that, oh, well, you're just using that as a label, you're mean or you're this or you're that, you're faking it or whatever. And I'm just like, okay, whatever you want to believe that, but I'm not gonna argue with you about it. But I don't know, I just found myself trying to fight, you know, with my thoughts in my mind and just figure out what the heck am I doing with myself, what the heck am I doing with my life. Am I just gonna really just be in the church and then just be like, okay, well, yeah, I don't read nothing in the Bible, I don't know, I can't quote you a scripture, I can't help you in prayer, or I can't even pray for myself. Like I had to figure out like what am I really doing and why am I doing it. So it just, I don't know, even though I've always had that label, I still had to work myself through. It's because people easily get caught up in that label, or that person's in church, they wouldn't do that. That person, she's in church, she wouldn't do that, she wouldn't say that. Or he's in church, he wouldn't act like that, or he wouldn't do that. And people get so caught up on that label that they just think that that person is perfect, or their life is perfect, or they're doing everything according to how they should be doing it as a Christian because you just see them in the church. But sometimes these people are in the church and they have that label as that kid that's always in church, or that lady that's always in church, that man that's always in church, always helping out in the church. They have that label put on them, but at the same time their life outside of that label is just a hot mess. There's nothing else to prove that they're actually a Christian besides them showing up to that church building every Sunday, or some of them that actually would show up to every church activity. Kind of like how you see, like you show up to every church activity and you have that label on you as that person that's always there, but deep down inside you're not really completely there. Like you're not whole as a Christian. So my whole point in this, or my whole take on this, would be not just to have that label, because for a long time that's the label I have, and to this day I still have that label. Like my friends from middle school, high school, they can all tell you like that's the label, or that's how they thought of me. And I'm perfectly fine with that, because it's not a bad thing for them to look at you that way and say, or he or she is always in church, or he or she is always, you know, she's in the choir, he's in the choir, like all those kind of things. It's not a bad thing to have that label on you, but my advice would be, why you have that label and people see you as this person, is that really how you're living your life though? Like behind closed doors, or when you're at home, the choices you're making, the things that you're saying and doing, does it reflect what people actually think of you? Like does it correspond to what they think of you? Does it make sense to how they see you and versus how you're living? Does it make sense? Like, are they just calling you that just to call you that, or are they calling you that but then you're also living in it and you're walking in it? Because a lot of people would just say, yes, I go to church, or I believe in God, or whatever, but the way that they're living is just completely opposite. And there was a point in time where I went through a few years and I was like that. But my thing is, don't get stuck and comfortable in living like that. Just, okay, yeah, I'm gonna go to church, but I'm not gonna do anything else. I'm not gonna get involved in anything else. And yes, not everyone likes to get involved in different groups. Like me personally, I don't like to deal with too many people because I don't like to deal with drama. So where there's too many people or too many people having a say in stuff or people too many opinions, there can be drama. So I just, you pick and choose where you're gonna involve yourself, what you're gonna do to use that time and actually better yourself as a Christian, and not just say, yes, I'm coming to church, I go to church every Sunday, I'm a member here, I pay my tithes here, but that's simply all that you do. There's nothing else to show for it. Like if you're going through a mental battle or emotional battle, like you're just ready to give up or be finished with life because you honestly don't know how to deal with those things. So it's not just having that label, but living life itself. How do you deal with life? How do you deal with other people? How do you treat other people? People calling you this and calling you that and thinking you're holy and you're all of this, but how do you actually carry out your life? Your day-to-day life, whether you're at work, at home, whoever you're dealing with, how do you deal with people? You have to make sure that it actually makes sense. Don't just have that label and then once they peel that label off, there's something else inside of you that's like a nasty person or ugly person inside of you. Don't just rely on that label either to save you, because that's not what's going to save you. That's not what's going to help you out. People thinking you're a Christian or people thinking that you're holy and godly is not what's going to be able to help you out in any circumstance. That label is not what's going to be able to save you or deliver you from anything. So just make sure that while people have this idea of you that, oh my gosh, that was happening earlier.
The camera's recording still.
My light just went out. But earlier it came back on when it did it.
Nowhere left to run. Oh, trying to bide our time. We know it's all done. Take a bow, you win. Oh, swim against your tide. It keeps pulling me in. We fight and we fall. Come